So I was going to open with this whole like cool little stop motion thing, but I got frustrated like halfway through and gave up. So here's just like a quick version of what I was trying to do. Hello, how are you? How are we doing? Ah! Thanks for watching. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, or depending on what time you are watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. Do you ever go watch a movie, whether you're excited for it or not, and the movie's coming to an end, since like the final scene, the final shot, then whatever happens, and it cuts to black, credits roll, and you just have that reaction where you go, huh, I've had that happen multiple times, especially when it comes to horror movies for some reason. And that's basically the reaction I had when I was watching this movie called Stopmotion. I guess it's just one of those movies that when it ends, you're just unsure of how to feel. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not always necessarily a great thing. But let me go to the beginning. But I was hopeful when this movie started because I saw that Shudder logo come on. And if you're not familiar with Shudder, they've become what I would consider, they're almost like A24's little sister is how I would put it. Like A24, they do a lot of creative things. They have a lot of interesting movies. Not all are going to be good. Not all are going to be bad. But I'm a big fan of Shudder, so when I saw that pop up, I got really excited. Now, I'm going to start here. If you've not seen Stop Motion and you're thinking of watching it, there is about a 30-second or so flashing light sequence at the beginning of the movie, and I just want to give kind of a heads up because even for me, that was a little bit of a sensory overload. Now, I knew nothing about this movie going in besides basically the title, Stop Motion, so I was thinking, okay, it's going to be about stop motion animation. That's probably a safe bet. But essentially, my only preview was the title and the poster. Now, the main girl, who I'll essentially refer to as not Shailene Woodley, but with all due respect to the main actress, who did a pretty good job, let me actually tell you her real name. Aisling Franciosi? I butchered it, I'm sorry. Can we just go back to not Shailene Woodley? So this really is a story about her. This is a single character centered film. This movie opens up with her and her mom is supposed to be this kind of famous filmmaker in the stop motion animation industry. And we see that her mom is not doing too well. She basically has like arthritis, so she can't really do the physical part of the stop motion anymore. That's where she needs her daughter to come in and help her. That is one of the main themes of this movie. The mom even refers to her daughter as Puppet. And as you can imagine, puppet, strings, she's being controlled.
Pull the string! Pull the string!
That is a big point in the whole movie. It felt like they were trying to do a lot of other smaller themes or subtext throughout the movie. I couldn't really tell. It didn't really seem like it was landing. There is a bit of a mental illness theme, I feel like, that's going on that happens with our main girl. It seems like she blacks out a lot or she's hallucinating. There is one thing, if you haven't seen the movie, maybe hold off right now watching the rest of this, but one of the other main characters is this little girl that she meets when she moves into this little apartment. And right from the beginning, you knew there was something off with this little girl. There was just something not quite right. And I started to kind of realize that, okay, this little girl isn't actually real. She's just part of her imagination, or she's just making her up. This little girl really only interacts with the main character. There's one scene where you see her walking down the stairs and this other character's walking by her, and they don't really say anything to each other. So that kind of enhanced my suspicion. And I thought maybe even the main character was seeing this little girl as a manifestation of herself when she was younger, maybe a more creative time in her life. And then when she gets older, she starts to lose that creative edge, or maybe it was just the overbearingness of her mother taking that away from her. But that is a strong theme throughout the movie, is like imagination. Now, this is a horror movie, but as far as the horror itself, I would say this ultimately isn't too scary. You can basically count on one hand how many jump scares there are, and it's one. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Shudder isn't trying to make jump scare type movies, I feel like. They are trying to make atmospheric, more psychological type movies. And that's where this falls into. But to me, the best part of this movie is essentially what the title of the movie is, stop motion. And that's where the true horror comes from, is any scene that involves any of the stop motion. They introduced this one character called Ashman, and he has this kind of evolution of his look, and they're blending scenes of stop motion with like live action, and it really looked good. I thought it really blended well. But that's my take on stop motion. I can see it being a divisive movie where some may get more out of it than others, but I still think it's a solid effort by the team over at Shudder. You know, you two are really hard to work with these days. We need to fix this on-screen chemistry.